We ready? All righty. Good morning, everyone. This is our Durham Board of Commissioners in-person meeting. With the Durham County Legislative Agenda. We really appreciate you all being here. This is always exciting to be able to meet with our delegation, the Durham delegation, and just share thoughts and share concerns and get updates on what's happening here. We're really excited about you all being here as always, and I will turn it over to Manager Hager.
Fantastic. Good morning. So grateful you could join us today and give us some highlights, and we appreciate all that you do to keep us in the forefront, especially in some tricky times. We'll have introductions, and I'll just have everyone go around the table. And I'm Claudia Hager, County Manager.
Deborah Craig Ray, Chief Communications Officer.
Johnny Phillip. I'm sorry. There we go. Johnny Tillett, lobbyist for the county.
Good morning, Marcia Morey, State Rep, District 30.
Zach Hawkins, State Rep, District 31.
Sophia Chitlick, State Senator, District 22.
Maurice Jones, Deputy County Manager.
Yes, Stephen with a PH, Valentine, County Commissioner, and thank you to our delegation for being here today.
And I'm Mike Lee, Vice Chair of the Durham County Commissioners.
Great. And we also have staff in the audience, and I'll have them stand. I'll recognize their names. Don Dudley, she's with our Public Information Office. All right. Okay. Crystalie Wright, who is our interim CFO. Gary Woods, who's also with our Finance Department, and he follows our compliance in federal areas. We have our DSS Director, Maggie Clapp. Tammy Hall, our Assistant County Manager. Dwayne Brinson, Assistant County Manager. John Kiefer, our Grants Administrator, who also follows our policy items as well. We have Joanne Pierce, who's walking in, our Assistant County Manager, as well as Henry Jones, who's with our PIO office. All right, thank you.
So I will turn it over to the turn it up for the Durham Legislative Delegation members.
Well, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate, especially Deborah, for keeping us on our check-in schedule. It is good, regardless of the information that is shared, it is good for us to be in constant communication. And so I think, as we were talking just before, where we are now, both the House and the Senate have presented their versions of the budget, have passed them out of their chambers, and we are not in a place where there is a conference committee yet established. And so we anticipate that we will get through the month of June without a budget. And so we have heard, and anyone can chime in, that we will likely take off July, and we will likely go in, close into September before there's a budget. So that's just to sort of give the time frame that we are experiencing. And so the House versions and the Senate version are completely different, which some of the key points that that are of concern are where the House and Senate are on tax cuts. As you saw, it was a bipartisan passing of the House version of the budget with the support of Governor Stein. And not that he completely endorsed the document, but he clearly thought it was much better than what the Senate presented. It did start 50. It proposed that starting teachers make $54,000 a year, which puts us #1 in the South and 13th in the country. It did not do anything for returning teachers, veterans teachers. So that was a cause of concern for many of us. It continued the voucher program, and so to the tune of about $100 million is in excess, and so that's a big concern of ours as well. One thing, there was an article that just was released, I think just yesterday or the day before, that people that are coming from public schools are not the ones truly using the vouchers as much as everyone else. And so generally, as we suspected, there are people who are already in private schools who are taking advantage of private school vouchers, and or people who are just entering the system altogether. So they're just skipping public schools and going straight to it. But it's not the escape that they thought that it would be. But in its maturation, it will be $500 million coming out. We also learned after the budget passed that the state will take in less revenue. It depending on what where you look, the number differs. But on top of proposed continued tax cuts, we will take in less revenue, and so that potential that economic forecast leads us to believe that many of the things that are even in the versions of the budget will be cut back unless those tax cuts are completely paused. And so that's the stance of the governor. That's our stance as a delegation. And so as we talk about these things, do know that, and we're hopeful that next week a conference committee will be established, because I will say this out loud. We would love to have a budget we could vote for, but we just have standards for what that budget should be. And that's investing in our people, our state employees, making sure that we are prioritizing crumbling infrastructure in our state-owned buildings, especially our school buildings, childcare, as you'll hear about, making sure that we are setting ourselves up for long-term success in North Carolina. With all the growth that's happening, we have an ability to lose it all and companies not continue to stay, both based on what we do federally and what we do stateside. So that's just an overview. And so with the first goal that we had in the legislative county overview, I'll let Senator Chitlick take lead because she filed the bill and she has an update.
Yep. Thank you. So local bills don't need to make crossover, so we've got time on this bill. For all of these, we will try to move them as independent bills. They don't, in the Senate, they don't move Democratic independent bills, so it would take an act of God. That being said, we're going to keep trying, and I've been having conversations, and there is some openness, actually, to this particular local bill. Senator Murdoch and I together filed, I think, 8 local bills focused on Durham. This one seems to be the most innocuous just because it's adding Durham to something that already exists. So there's a lot of precedent for that. We'll try to include it as an amendment or as like a little fold-in to another bill, and we're always looking for opportunities for that. We haven't found one yet, and if push comes to shove, we will try to move it as a local bill. And again, there's some openness to that, but it would be an anomaly. So we are pushing for it. It's on our radar. I had a conversation about it, I think, 2 weeks ago with leadership. There's some openness.
Sorry. Representative Jeffries, you want to introduce yourself? We just went around and did that before you walked in.
Good morning, Ray Jeffries, District 2.
Okay. The second goal here, and we don't have to do it this way, but is seeking funding for the $30 million to enhance utility systems upgrades, support, and RTP. This $30 million ask is just going to be a far stretch, we believe, this session, just because of economics, and I think as our lobbyists will chime in, it does depend on the budget process getting to a point where we can vote for it, and if you're in the frame of mind to vote for a budget, then they're more than willing to include lots of your things. But again, as I said, we have standards for what a budget has to look like before Durham County is willing to sign off on it. And so this particular infrastructure piece is something that we hope that our business friends will take on as an issue. And that's something that we're going to continue to push for. We will, as the process goes on, I will say this, and once the conferees are established, we will go through our line items with them, and they will just give us a yes or a no about whether they're included. So we will tell you, even though it didn't go through the legislative process, we are still going to make ask. But we will need, on things like this, we will need partners, because I think they do understand that RTP is the economic engine of the state, and that we need that work. The increase for funding for community colleges, the Propel NC program, which is a restructuring of the way that they fund community colleges, is no action currently with the bill, but as a legislature, that's something that they're taking on. And what that will do is that it will put lots of our community college faculty at parity with their UNC system partners, or at least increased pay for the most part. And so both our community college partners seem pretty excited about that. Now they are taking cuts across the system, no matter where about the UNC system, community college system, all departments. If you have vacancies, they have snatched those vacancies. And so they're not then allowing them to use those dollars for like pay incentives, et cetera. They took it, and then they're going to give it back to them blanket for new positions. And so, which we did not agree with. We thought it was a horrible deal. And people had questions about it during the explanation. But I don't know if any of the other members of the delegation want to chime in on that, but we do know that there is support for it. It's just that it is hard to hire, as you know, here at the county, when your salaries are not up to par. And so it is penalizing them, and it's not just the community college system, it is all departments of government that they're doing this to. And so our areas like DOT, some areas have 20-25% vacancy. And so it's just not helpful, because it slows the process down of being able to get qualified people in the system.
Just a quick thing to add for community colleges is we're also facing administrative cuts across the board. So they're taking away the administrative funding, or a certain percentage, I think it's 10% of the administrative funding for each community college, with the hopes that they can centralize administrative services in a sort of like TopCo office. So I think there's some skepticism about how that could work and what that might mean for Durham Tech, but we've all been in close touch with President Buxton, and I know that they have a good plan, and we're working on getting Durham Tech included in a few little pilots here and there to try to even some of this out, although it will not certainly make up that funding loss that we're facing in any way.
Any questions? Okay. Marsh? Anything?
Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure where we are. If we're going,
So I was just making sure. Number 4. Number 4 is increasing the state funds for economic development. This is something, again, I think that goes without saying, is that if you continue tax cuts, then this is something you will not be able to do. We are finding that we are going to, while outside of the budget, we passed a separate bill for Helene. We then found out after that, as a state, that the Trump administration has decided not to extend as much aid to states. And so we were the third in line. I think it was Arkansas, Kentucky, and then North Carolina that were told, no right now. And so that will, they are hoping that tourism, as you saw the governor on the Late Show talking about tourism, we're hoping that tourism can save us, because the state will not be able to increase what we have done. Especially given sort of the tax structure that we're in. Number 5 is minimum wage. That's one we're going to continue to push. It's laudable, but it doesn't seem like our friends feel that way. And number 7 is transit funding for urban and rural. I filed that bill in the Durham funding bill, and I know that there are our DOTs are undergoing a lot of changes. Just because of trying to figure out how to pay, staff and or seeing what's possible in this new administration, and so more to come. But I know that there are a lot of people who are very interested in changing that formula and that structure.
Real quick before you get off of number 4, I serve on AGNR, which is the Appropriations Subcommittee for Commerce, and there was some increased funds to JDIG, as well as looking at some of the Select Site program, where there's been a lot of emphasis on the mega site program here lately. Select sites would be economic development sites of 1,000 acres or less.
You want to tell them about one of the mega sites in your district?
Well, I reported last time I think we met that Microsoft purchased our mega site, so we're hopeful.
Okay, on time, number 7.
Representative Hawkins, just want to share real quick that conferees have been appointed in the House and the Senate. There was 3 Ds on the House side, and y'all probably can imagine who they are. I'm sorry. I will. I was just saying, because this came out late yesterday, they did do conferees in the House. Senate's already as well. There's 3 Democrats that was appointed from on the House side. That's 4 on the Senate side. There's 3 on the House side.
Who are the 3?
Cunningham, Brockman. This is conferees. When on the budget, I apologize. So conferee, so the budget, the House did a budget, Senate did a budget. They have a conferees to get together, try to come up with a budget. And so basically what I do is take all the appropriation chairs. Normally that's the first start, then they kind of start plug and play the rest of them. But there was 3 Democrats that was also appointed by the Speaker to serve on the conferees. Representative Cunningham of Charlotte, Brockman, Cecil Brockman out of High Point area, and Representative Willingham down in northeastern North Carolina. And then on the Senate side, there's 4. Senator Blue, Senator Lowe, Senator Robertson, and Senator Waddell. So, I'm sorry, Representative, I just want to share that with you.
No. Thank you for that. We did not receive that.
It was late.
Yeah. We didn't see that this morning, so no, thank you for that.
You got it.
That's why you're around. And so, I don't know we don't know what to expect. I think it's good that we have those members on the committee, on the conference committee, and we're hopeful that they can negotiate appropriately. For HBCUs, that's actually a really good pivot. North Carolina Central was placed into the Senate version of the budget at $100 million. That's helpful because of renovation. Buildings are in desperate repair on campus, and so their ask, we filed, but they were able to, I think Senator Blue and Senator Robinson were able to make sure that got in. And so that was super helpful. So that's one potential win that we're hoping. It did not appear in the House version of the budget. And so that is something that with our conferees, we'll definitely make sure we work on. So thank you for that. Number 7, no real movement on that. Number 8, that did not get it. No movement.
Hey,
No
Representative Hawkins?
Sorry, did I miss over something?
On 7, I just had a brief question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So I heard you clearly that there seemed to be no action, but are there conversations about the impact that the dollars we could potentially lose with regards to Medicaid and their impact in our community? What are the conversations at the Assembly?
Yeah, well, mainly around child care. The portion of that we've been trying to fixate on, and it just seems to be some stall, is one, trying to find underutilized space for child care. And I think the increasing slots for child care is something that we're also trying to find. But everyone says they're for it, but putting your money where your mouth is really sort of the name of the game, right? And I would say again, until we can sort of figure out what the tax tax structure is going to look like. We're not going to necessarily have a full picture, and a lot of it is, I think, determined by what we see happening federally with the big beautiful bill, big ugly bill. Okay, I was just trying to use the terms that are on the piece of paper. They want you to use that. Duly noted. Yeah. So that does cut about $880 billion, and so we, may see some of those effects here, and so I think some of that determines that too.
I also think it's important to note, we get about 43% of our total state budget from the federal government, and when you look at Health and Human Services, state Health and Human Services, it's more like over 70% of that money, and we've seen the cuts to epidemiology and pandemic controls. Now we've seen major cuts to research. So we've seen entire departments get wiped out every few weeks from the federal cuts. And that's before the federal budget passes. So we have an amazing team in our agencies who are preparing and doing the best that they can to make it extraordinarily clear what's at stake, so that across the political spectrum, so that we can have a comprehensive understanding of what's really at stake here. And I think they've done a great job with that. But one of my big critiques of the budget, both House and Senate, is that it pretends like none of this is happening. There are absolutely no preparations in those budgets. It's like we're existing in an alternate reality. And so I'm concerned about that. I'm really concerned about it, because we see whole departments disappear. Healthy Opportunities is a great example. We're losing that July 1 without a plan. And I know we were really looking forward to that expansion here in Durham. So we're watching these and trying to advocate. And I actually think there is a lot of support among our Republican colleagues for some of these measures, and certainly for the existence of things like HHS or childcare. And I'm happy to talk about childcare when we get there. But yeah, I also think when Representative Alston comes back, she might want to talk about some good news potentially on the child welfare side with her fostering bill, which looks like it's going to pass the Senate this week.
Let me just add, Stephen, that of course the work requirement, they keep debating with Medicaid, but we've also passed, and the Senate hasn't taken it up, but they want verification of anyone that receives $1 of state funds that they are legally here in the state of North Carolina. And that is going to put a huge burden on administrative, DHHS, everyone else, that they are going to have the auditor audit to make sure no one in North Carolina who is here without legal documentation can receive any benefit. And it's just punitive, and but it's being put into the budget bill, it's being put into separate bills, border protection bill that we passed last week, and so that's gonna have a big impact on our people in Durham.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I know at our budget work session, I asked Director Maggie Clapp of DSS, do you all know what kind of work requirements are they looking at? Like, because we know most people who do receive services are already working, like they have to work 20 hours a week. Mm-hmm.
I think it's two different versions in different bills, but yeah, actively we're working 20 hours a week is one of them. If you are disabled, you have to prove your disability periodically and repeatedly, and it's just an administrative nightmare, and it's probably not worth the cost of the oversight and the punitiveness of it for any benefit that they're getting out of it, but just to be aware.
And I just wanted to recognize our DSS director who's here, Maggie. She also drew attention to the name of, what number is the bill, Maggie? We'll let her look at in the House budget bill. If you could tell us the number, which wants to centralize, also is proposing to centralize part of the application process for Medicaid. And there are concerns from all of the DSS directors that this is going to and end up reducing people's ability to get access to Medicaid, and even also to impact access to just getting the services once you have them. It just will, you want to come up and articulate it better than me. Just want to make sure that you all are aware of it, because it's something that everyone just kind of got surprised about, and I'm not sure if you all are aware of it.
Thank you, everyone. So it is in the House budget bill. It can be found on page 251, line 2 to 23. What it's talking about is centralizing Medicaid, and what we're not sure about, does this mean that the state is going to take this in, or is this talking of, they want to do an assessment for next year? And so is this talking about taking this into the state, or is it talking about doing a workforce kind of model to see, to help with the county structure of Medicaid? But if it's taking it in within the state, we have a lot of concerns about that, because what that will look like is, one, people won't be able to come into the office anymore to ask questions, and that's going to really impact our elderly population. And so I just want to give a scenario. We have very close relationships with our long-term care agencies in the county. They call us daily. There's a lot of work that is done there. Every time there's a change in someone's status, we have to do a change. And you need to have good relationships with those, because if you're not done timely, someone could be discharged. We are able to stop that because they know us, we have relationships with them, and they know that we're working on that. So that is something that it would, if the state took that in, it would take that out of the counties. It also would not, people wouldn't be able to go in and ask questions and be able to have a caseworker. How would people, would they have to go to Raleigh to do that? So we're not, this kind of took us by surprise. One of the directors in Craven County is actually the one who found it, so we're trying to meet with our state representatives next week. But, we take, the benefits for the children in the county would be impacted, because again, we work very closely with our LMEs to make sure that these services are there. And sometimes we can, negotiate with them. So I think it would be detrimental. It would also take out funding from the county. But yet the county would still be responsible for the admin cost. So we have a lot of concerns about this and where exactly this is going.
No, thank you for that. We're literally reaching out to DHHS now to set up a meeting with them, and then to have conversations with the LMEs as well. Because that is serious, because I think the inability to have county level access and to potentially have to use only electronic services, phone, email, online application, could be troublesome.
Absolutely, because a lot of times ePass works really well, but a lot of times there are things that have not been inputted correctly, and so then we take that over. And I'm just going to be honest, the state does not pay as well as we do. And so we are already having trouble getting people to apply for Medicaid positions that are trained. So that was another concern of the directors, is what the workforce would look like at that level.
This impacts every county. I mean, Republican counties too. So I think, DSS directors really need to go to the chief budget writers of the Republican districts and say, this is hurting us. If it comes from Durham, it's like,
yes.
But, get that coalition going.
Yeah, we are, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
No, thank you for that. We will definitely make sure that, Deborah, we get a response from HHS and to see sort of where they are, because I think, as you know, every department is also advocating to legislators and calling legislators based on the changes. Representative Alston has joined us. And I think we mentioned you in support for increased state funding for women, children, and families, and your fostering care bill, if you had any updates about that. Oh, no, just your update on your bill, that's all.
I don't have the child care bill.
Just the fostering care bill.
So 612.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, so I'm on the House Bill 612. fostering care in North Carolina bill. It's a foster care reform. It went through Senate, came through the House before crossover, went through Senate Health yesterday. So we will continue to support it and hope that it will get across the finish line here soon. So it's a pretty large bill. I'm happy to try to walk through some of the highlights. So.
I did have a question about the bill about the housing bill that you were able to work on with the other legislator, House Rep for Durham, about teacher housing, things like that.
Yeah, I wish I had all the answers to the status of that bill. I don't. Yeah, I was really encouraged. Obviously, we filed a standalone bill to allow for the joint partnerships for the county to do affordable housing for staff. And then I worked with another member who had a similar version of that bill for Watauga, Dare County, a few of the western counties, and had Durham included. Got that through committees to the floor, and then I'm not sure. I can't really report. I would only be speculating as to kind of what happened. But I think we did our level best. We will see if there are other opportunities to include that language in other places, but unfortunately it did not survive crossover.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can just answer a little bit of that. And again, Representative did a great job presenting that bill, and we thought we had some good traction, but there was when the bill went to caucus on the other side of the aisle, there was a strong advocate in there against it. I mean, just to be completely honest, that's kind of what happened, and so it was stopped in its tracks. We did go try to talk to them, because again, there's several other counties who wanted to be a part of that, and we thought we were moving ahead, and one of them is Dare County that I also represent, and so we had two counties. We thought it was a home run until it got to caucus, and he was adamant against it and stopped it. So we're still fighting. Hopefully we got some time to keep working at it, so it is still workable.
Do you know what was the argument against it?
He just didn't like it. I mean, he really no reason why. He just said he didn't like it. He didn't like the bill. Pretty simple.
Okay, that's hard to fight it. It's hard to argue against somebody who just says that I don't like it.
It is, and there's a lot of people that
Most of the time, that's what they say.
That's what they say.
That's right.
They're not
That's
going to know
exactly
why.
right.
That's what they say.
I don't believe it's a function of government.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah, and so that does beg, that does beg our, going back to our conversation around finding alternatives to getting this done. Because I don't know, Mr. Lobbyist, I think there was another county who has also done this. Bertie County we mentioned, but there's another county who's also moving. And so whenever we get back together, I hope that we can have some alternatives to this, because I think with the Public School Foundation and some willing partners, which I think are the only ingredients you need, we can't continue to wait. Because by the day it gets more expensive to live in Durham, and I will say this, to Representative Austin's credit, it was calendared to be voted on. Everyone was ready to push the green button, and all of a sudden it got displaced. That's how close she's gotten. So the incredible work that she's done can't be understated. So yeah, so we do have to find an alternative. All right, so I'll pass it on to Senator Chitlick for number 9.
Yeah, this is an area where I still have some hope. Obviously, what's happening at a federal level is an existential threat to any progress made on childcare, let alone anything that we want to do in the future. But the governor created a task force on childcare innovation, and it has bipartisan representation as well as from industry. And there are recommendations coming out of that task force. The first wave of kind of top-level recommendations will come out at the end of this month. And I think we'll expect to see things like raising the subsidy floor, which does have bipartisan support. I'm excited about that. Whether we'll see that carried through in conference in the budget is another thing, but I think there are areas where we have broad consensus. The floor is one of them. Child care subsidies and support for early childhood educators themselves is another one. Some kind of child care financing solution. We've seen some talk around an endowment concept, which I think is interesting, but I've proposed an alternative, which is the creation of a child care finance agency, which also has bipartisan support, and we'll be working on that with industry and other leaders so that we can have a one-stop, not just financing solution, but matching solution. Certainly not a silver bullet for childcare, but will increase the supply of on-site corporate childcare, and also is designed to scale proven local providers so that we're scaling folks like Kate and Kate's Corner and not just bringing in another private equity backed massive national provider that doesn't know our community. So it's an opportunity also to increase childcare small businesses to scale from 1 to 2 sites to 2 to 10. So I've been doing a lot of work on that and happy to answer questions about it. Additionally, we've seen a lot of bills around childcare center regulation. I was able to pass an amendment that focused on bringing folks together on building codes because we've had a lot of stalling with that. So we'll continue to hopefully see some innovation around that. I'm trying to think about maybe there's something we can do around zoning and providing builder incentives for on-site childcare. So we're trying to get creative and repurposing a lot of the bills that Senator Chaudhry and I filed. We did like 8 for an omnibus for childcare, trying to repurpose those constantly as amendments or little tie-ins. But on a macro level, I do think we will see movement on the floor. I'm hopeful, and I think we will see some kind of financing proposal. But neither of those are silver bullet solutions because what we actually need is just to increase the subsidy rate drastically and the number of seats that we provide, and that's a money solution, and folks are not willing to do that right now.
Questions?
I just wanted to add, just so you know, we're revising our unified development ordinances in Durham, and one of the things that we're going to be looking at is how do we remove barriers to having childcare basically in every part of Durham. So that is something that we are incorporating into the new UDO, and could help with a model for the rest of the state.
Yeah. So that question, that's what I was going to say, is that Representative Dean Arp worked on unbeknownst to me, but worked on a project with the Department of Administration to try and inventory. Is that right, Mr. Lopez? Try to inventory underutilized space. It was what's that? It was you tried to bite an elephant all at once. And so my solution was to, I filed an amendment, and it was rejected, not because it was a bad idea, but he said he had already tried it and failed. And so what we hope is that counties can lead, and counties can come up with, a list, because you have, a smaller number to deal with, of spaces where in school buildings and in county buildings, similar to what you're saying, that would help us tremendously, because that actually may be an opportunity for state and county to partner, which is sort of what I was sort of showcasing that be done. But he thought he was just going to work with DOA and try and find them. And there's no pilot program, and so we'll continue to push on that because people are very interested in the idea. But I don't think they figured out an easy mechanism. I think they've just stopped in their tracks till they got overwhelmed. So we would love to hear what happens eventually.
So I just want to say to Senator Chitlick, I saw your Instagram video where you were going toe-to-toe with that about the immigration bill. Good work. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the task force with Senator Bergen. How's that going, and any updates around that? Because I know even though he's on the other side of the aisle, he's a big advocate for childcare. So
he's a great friend of childcare for sure, and is one of the co-chairs of the task force. along with Lieutenant Governor Hunt. And so a lot of the recommendations that I've audited all the meetings. I just sort of show up. And I think the conversations have been good. There have been a lot of pilots, I think, that have been discussed in these meetings that are applicable to Durham. They're talking a lot about kind of county and municipal provided childcare for employees, on-site childcare. And there are some models that I think could be interesting, and we can talk more about that. But I think what I think the task force is really going to be great at is elevating these solutions where we have true consensus, and that's raising the floor, that's having a financing solution, that's child care subsidy for early childhood educators, and there is some workforce training and development, like these child care academies that have been piloted out of Johnston and other places that rapidly certify early childhood educators. And so I think those are consensus solutions that are emerging, and I hope that they'll emerge in time to be included in the budget. But in terms of big swings, I don't think we're going to see it, because the kind of capital that it takes to implement true solutions to this crisis involves county, state, and federal collaboration. And it would involve freezing the sort of perilous crash to zero corporate income tax and 1.25 or 1.99 personal income tax.
I don't know, Representative Morey or Representative Jeffers, y'all want to talk about private school vouchers?
I mean, there's not much to say. It's, continuing to be fun, $500 billion. I think we've already talked about it. I'm going to talk about a few other things. The budget's interesting because when it came, 20 Democrats voted against the House budget, 27 voted for. Every Republican voted for. So the House is pretty split. Governor Stein, had indicated that, he wasn't thrilled with it, but he wasn't totally against it because it was so much better, in his opinion, than the Senate budget. So the conference will be critical. Some of the things in the House budget, I voted against it. The work required for Medicaid that we talked about, it's trying to fund raises on the back of eliminating vacant physicians. Our Department of Corrections, 500 positions would be eliminated. That would save about $30 million, and that money they would use to help fund some of the raises. The problem is every penny of that $30 million is already being used in operational expenses at Department of Corrections, so you can't use the money twice. And it's putting us further and further in the hole. DHHS would lose $10 million. The university system had been asked to come up with $60 million in funding reductions. They want to raise the price of tuition on students to raise $30 million in 2026-27, which is a problem. I put amendment in. People don't know about IOLTA grants, which is interest earned on attorney trust funds that funds many domestic violence, mediation, victim survivors, immigration services. Wipe that out and put it into the budget for IDS, Indigent Defense Services, but a lot of local programs could be totally wiped out if that goes through. I think it's unconstitutional. It's private money that they're taking for public purpose. One thing, it's not enough, but local reentry that I know Durham is very interested. I'm interested in $1.6 million for local reentry councils, which would be, a very fraction of that coming in here to Durham. So those are the reasons I was really concerned about the budget. I just don't think it's sustainable. We want to see the corporate tax be maintained as one of the lowest in the Southeast, because getting rid of that, we're going to lose $30 billion by 2030. And these income tax cuts are not sustainable, especially with the decreased revenue coming in. I think I'll just add, and others will do it, what are we doing? What am I doing? What are the bills that I filed that match some of what our priorities are? Raising the minimum wage, we sponsored that with Zach and Vernetta, and tying it to inflation, getting up to $18 2-year increments, removing barriers to labor organization, that people have the right to organize. Budget transparency, accountability, that they can't throw a budget out and within 24 hours vote on it without amendments. A second look act for reentry. Anyone that has a prison term of over 20 years, that a court can look at that sentence and a second look to see if it can be reduced, and then also provide reentry services. We responded to the Riggs-Griffin issue, trying to get military overseas ballots counted. A lot of this, I mean, it doesn't go to the floor, it doesn't even go to committee, but I think these represent a lot of Durham's values. Fair maps to get rid of this gerrymandering, which is at the core of where we really are today. Gun safety has always been a priority to get, you know, a lot of, if you have a gun in a vehicle, lock it up. And the red flag law, the ERPO. So one thing, and Michelle, you had on here, I did introduce, and I think Vernetta's on a school discipline act, and it was don't suspend kids in pre-K through 3rd grade. And if there are long-term suspensions, you have to give parents notice and more kind of due process and try and get the kids back in school. It's not quite raising the mandatory education to 18, but we're trying to do things incrementally. Had some good Republican support, but if the corner offices shake their head no, it goes nowhere. So, sorry to take up this time, but I just want you to know, these are the things that, you know, we're passionate about, I think Durham's passionate about, and we will push and keep pushing. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Representative Moray. I just want to lift up, you know, I know this probably was already talked about before I came in, about school funding. I feel, and I know my colleagues feel, like we're just we're at this point where we're doing whatever we can at the local level to prop up the schools, and it's getting, you know, we can't sustain it. It's the salaries, the cost of living in Durham, you know, inflation, and how, as a local government, how do we continue to do this without state support? I don't know, sounds like, you know, it's hard to move folks at the legislature. And I'm just surprised that these smaller counties, you know, like Person, Caswell, Granville, like, I know they're feeling this pressure too. So, you know, whatever you all can do, I know that middle tier of teachers from 15 to 24, like there's just no movement. And with classified staff, like wanting their salaries to increase. So, you know, it's really unfortunate that they wouldn't look at the 18, you know, the increase in the minimum wage, because that will help so many of our classified staff. So I know you all are doing whatever you can, but we really need, you know, help with that. So I just wanted to lift that up. Thank you so much for letting us know what you're doing, particularly around the pre-K to 3rd grade, no suspensions. And I know Durham Public Schools has been really committed to not suspending kids in elementary school. So thank you.
I was at a discussion this week with a bipartisan group of legislators, and the discussion was around school funding as it relates to having a weighted formula. And they've looked at Tennessee and they've looked at all these other states and what they're doing, and it was really interesting to see the different opinions, I guess, amongst all really the legislators, particularly the ones that did not serve at a local level, particularly the county level, who fund schools or supplement schools. So there was everything in there where if we did this, then maybe we should give the roads back to the counties. If we did this, maybe we should give Medicaid back to the counties. That what just happened about two. I mean, so there's a, you know, and I brought up, I said, look, I've served with commissioners all over the country. Some states don't do roads. They would rather do roads than fund kids and deal with parents. But then look at the roads they have and the type of roads they have. And then the whole Medicaid swap that happened right before I got elected, that was bankrupt in some counties because they did not know what that number would be every year. So it's being discussed, But I think from a county level, me particularly being, former county commissioner, we're gonna have to be careful with some of them because they don't understand the nuances of the county government, what all you fund, what's mandated for you to fund, and that if we give this, then we should give them this. And so we're just gonna have to be, careful with some of them when we discuss that.
And I'll just add, when you get into formulas, it's not one size fits all, because when you look at the percentage of, for instance, children who are living in poverty or high needs children, which we have in Durham, a high percentage of our population have special needs. You can't just look at Durham and say, oh, well, they don't need the money. And looking at who is in our public schools, because now it is majority children of color. We're down to only 20% of our kids are white. That's a big difference from when I was a Durham public school parent 30 years ago. It was probably more like 40% or 50%. So, be careful what we ask for. And I would just add to what Michelle said is around capital funding. That's another burden. It's not just the operations and personnel, but also the capital costs. So, but I think, if there's some way to talk about this where we're not opening a can of worms that puts us in a worse position, I think that's a really good point. Thank you.
That was another piece of special needs funding that few of those legislators really understood, and that it has a cap. And then the fear is if they release the cap, then all the school boards would just lie about the special need children just to get the money. And so that came from some legislator there. So, I mean, we're going to need to do some education on how county funding works.
Yeah, and particular to 13.25 is what came out in the House version with no increase in the Senate. The governor asked for a complete removal of the cap. I think Wake County shared that they have 22% of their children with disabilities, and so they're losing quite a bit in revenue trying to support. And so I know that is a negotiating place. The other thing that is of concern with developmental disabilities is there were no innovations waivers proposed in either the House or the Senate version of the budget.
Say that again.
No innovations waivers. And so there's a list of the innovations waiver allows for LMEs to work with a family to get services for them to get out into the community and for their overall care package. And there were no, and so that list, if we don't move, will grow to over 19,000. And so there are some efforts, but of course, with Medicaid being in trouble, both state and federal, that's sort of what they're citing. There is some movement with supporting families with disabilities with a community college expansion program that they're working on that would further sort of give opportunity for those students to get workforce development training. And so it was in mostly rural counties in the first round, but they're expanded it to 25. And so Durham Tech did apply, and they're expected to be in the number in this go round. In NCCU, we were able to make sure that NC State and NCCU received $3 million for a 4-year certificate program that will allow students with disabilities to go to college, have dormitories, learn life skills, and take some courses. And we were able to make sure that in the budget it was not clawed back, and so they're able to keep that money. And hopefully that continues to stand, because that could be huge for NCCU in making sure that they're able to do that. But there are lots of concerns with the cap because we're not serving those kids. And then there was lots of conversation around homeschool and disabilities. And also suspension. North Carolina is number one in the country for suspending kids with disabilities. And so DPI was interested in moving on that, and so we're hoping that they can do some things on their own Particularly getting plans by district to figure out what they're going to do. But all said, especially with the financial situation that we're facing, we are very concerned about what life looks like for those with disabilities over the next 2 years.
And I'll also add that, we're particularly concerned about everything that's happening on a federal level with immigration and the impact of our students in DPS and across the state, and also of our on our English language learners. The budget on both sides, House and Senate, does something very interesting with the ELA cap. It removes the cap and changes the formula. So I think for us, it will mean that we're getting less per child, but we are losing the cap, so it will be more net funding for DPS on that side, which is really interesting, and we'll see what happens to that in conference. But again, the burden of the EC cap is so intense, and we've been in conversations about that, and there are many people on the other side of the aisle who think that this is wrong also. I think it's just it's certainly an issue of will and also an issue of money. We've also been pushing, not just against opportunity scholarships now, but the allocations in the future. So this biennium budget has $1.3 billion for vouchers over the course of 2 years. So Senator Applewhite and I filed legislation to freeze these opportunity scholarships, and also to so that we at least stop the bleeding, because this allocation is poised to go up drastically over time. So, it's not just pushing against what's happening now, it's making sure that we're not eroding for the future, because it will be extremely difficult to claw back those perceived benefits, right? So important to stop what we have right now, and to keep talking about it. That's $1.3 billion we could be investing in our public schools.
Wow. I don't know if the delegation members had anything else to add before. I do want to give also our board ability to comment on a few things.
Full disclosure, I'm the only delegation member that voted for the budget, but mainly because for the last decade we've talked about beginner teacher pay, and I've always been of the, I heard it somewhere years ago, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and I think conceding that and maybe supporting the budget will at least give, hopefully, one of us an opportunity to be at the table if there's some things been discussed. And I had some things to go through committee and some amendments and stuff that were in there. But I also represent the most conservative district, I think, in Durham. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And I just wanted to say, I get it, because when you see that, okay, beginning teacher pay will get over $50,000 a year, it's like, yes, finally. When I saw that, I'm like, maybe we'll make some progress. So I totally understand, but they put these young. I know it's really, really hard. So, but I totally understand. So thank you. I know this is hard work, y'all. This is really hard work to go up there to Raleigh, to, advocate and look out for our interests here in Durham County. And, it's just tough work. That's why I want to support you all as much as I can. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I just say one thing real
absolutely.
quick? And again, you got a great delegation. I really enjoy working with them. It's a little challenging, as they all have been saying that. But also, you folks, you guys, when you're talking to your counterparts from other counties, it helps us. Because again, we have to work across the aisle. So when you guys are meeting, we meet every Friday with the County Commissioners Association, and also represent some municipalities. We meet every Friday as well to go, because there's just so much stuff out there. And we're playing more defense of any, just trying to keep what we have, what the counties and cities have. And it's crazy out there, but we try to work across the aisle. You gotta talk. They may not like what we have to say, but a lot of them over there believe in a lot of things what we're doing. But again, when you have certain areas where you can't cross that line, could you go in caucus and it kind of shuts the doors? But we have some good things in there, and there's some bills. I know I work with Senator Chetna a lot. I see her every day, and she's right there with me, and which is a good thing. And so we're working that part about it, but just let, and all our lobbying team is kind of constantly on that. But I think the main thing I was trying to tell, as I did yesterday at the county commissioners, is to tell, we all got to work together. And you guys see stuff on Twitter and social media, just give us a shout. Let Deborah know, and we'll try. Because again, there was 2,200 bills. 5 of them became law. 5. And 3 of them were, one was state of the state, and the other 2 were local bills. And we've been in session since January 9th.
Thank you. And so thank you to all of you for what you're doing. I personally cannot even imagine what it's like every day, especially when you have somebody who just says, well, I just don't like it. It's hard to work with that. But I appreciate what you just said. It is also relationships do matter. And so, building those relationships with people, it makes a difference. And I see everyone doing that. So thank you. We do have our county assembly day next week. And so that's a good reminder for all of us as we build our relationships. Because yes, it is gonna take other counties actually are gonna have to be leading on some of these issues. I just wanted to highlight a few things and then pass it on to my colleagues. One is some good news, the HB 546 Medicaid modernization. We're really glad to see how that will impact our costs in our jail. We were just talking about this recently during the budget work session. We are spending, when you factor in behavioral health and physical health, over $6 million a year on health care for detainees. And it's so expensive. And so being able to, this bill will help us with at least transitioning and having some of the health care covered this way. And then, of course, seeing how this can help with pregnant women, obviously, is really important. I know Maggie's still here, but just to really highlight about the impact already that federal funding is having, cuts are having on us related to public health. We've already seen cuts in things like HIV testing, STIs, access to COVID vaccines, Narcan. So these have already happened. And again, similar to the state budget, most of our, at least half of our budget in public health and DSS is from federal funding. Whether it passes through from the state or it's direct. And then the proposed cuts in what is already in the House bill, federal House bill, will just decimate, for instance, SNAP benefits, our, food and nutrition. We can't replicate that at the local level. Maggie, how much do we get monthly from SNAP? It's yeah. Oh, thank you. Okay? Wow. All right. Awesome. So we can't make that up. And then the DINE program will be eliminated, which provides great nutrition education in Durham Public Schools. Funds our Double Bucks program that allows women to get fresh food, families at the farmers market, fresh fruits and vegetables. So this is a health issue, just so wanted you all to be aware. And I want to highlight the work requirement. What we're really worried about is people who are in recovery. And our medication-assisted treatment program, because those are the people who are going to be impacted by the work requirement. And you all know that people have to be in recovery for a certain period before they can work. We just had a opioid settlement town hall meeting last night, and we could see from the data that we already have that once people are in recovery, then at least the data we have, 25% of them within just a few months get jobs. We see that in our recovery court, that once people get into treatment, then after that they're able to get into jobs. But if you require them to work, first off, they will not have access to that treatment. So, so I just want to really highlight that the progress that we've made overcoming overdose deaths in this country and the state, it will be obliterated. So we're talking about people's lives being at risk. I also just wanted to, the immigration, very concerning, and the sanctuary bill, executive order. I'm one of the vice chairs of our national NACO Immigration Reform Task Force, and so I get a lot of, and I'm also on the NACO Justice and Public Safety Committee, and that bill has been, the list, the Department of Homeland Security list, has been discussed in both places. I hope that what seemed to be really helpful was the National Sheriff's Association pushing back. I don't know what's going on the state level, but nothing. Okay. We're going to need, and also help possibly from Attorney General Jackson, because, you know, Durham County is not a sanctuary jurisdiction. And I'm sure you saw the press release that came out from us, but we will fight that in every way, but we are not. No, they didn't retract it. They took the list down, but what I was in a meeting on Thursday with the Justice and Public Safety Committee meeting, and they told us that they expect that a new list will come up. Just a matter of time, a revised list. So we have to be prepared to actually, yeah. Yeah, so I wanted you to be aware of that, because we will possibly need help from the Attorney Jackson as well. And just changes to FEMA, which again, you were mentioning FEMA. What I learned this week is that what they're looking at in the bill, the bipartisan bill around changes to FEMA, is that will be more of a grant program than a reimbursement program. They're proposing universal disaster application for individuals. These are some of the positive things, and that there's going to be a requirement possibly that to be eligible for funding, you would have to identify a mitigation project in each county that you are participating in. There will be a 20% cut to non-disaster programs, and FEMA runs a lot of different other programs, and also a complete elimination of the shelter and services program, and also the program that reimburses, the STAC program that reimburses counties for housing immigrants in jail. So that is really key for us at the county level. When we're asked for ICE detainers and things like that, we will not be reimbursed for those costs. And that's something that other people in the GA should understand. That is a local burden.
We bring that up literally every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you
Yes.
for that update.
I also very quickly, just want to highlight Museum of Life and Science, that we need to be very aware of protecting funding and support for the museum.
They get they get federal funds. I know that they wrote to us about the IMLS, and that was a big thing. And I know, didn't we write a letter trying to keep, so.
Yeah, and I don't, if you all could give us an update, maybe you as well, about House Bill 765, which was one of the bills that the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners really organized around. That's the bill that takes away local control of land use decision making, and also penalizes local officials for things, and also the proposed fix to the other bill that had come in that, I don't remember the number of it, but anyway, that was in Hurricane Helene, yeah. So if you could give us any updates on those.
765. Now, understand, when we say bills are dead, they're not really dead. But that bill didn't make crossover, but what will happen is they are taking care of they're changing it around. So we'll probably see a lot of that stuff that was in that bill, as I think Senator Chetlet mentioned and Representative Moore mentioned, it'd be some other stuff. But right now, we talked about it yesterday at the County Commissioners meeting yesterday, and so that we are still watching that bill very closely, or pieces of that bill.
Do you know what pieces may move over?
I don't know why they are yet. I mean, I tried to talk to the home builders yesterday, and they kind of keep into the vest. But we will, because that's when I can say all the counties got together and really put pressure on the members, because that bill was moving pretty fast, and then it kind of stopped. And so I really feel like that's going to, it will come back up in pieces. I'm not quite sure what's going to be in the different ones, but based on what they told me yesterday, we will say it again. So, sorry, that's about all I have. They may have more, but that's what we were told.
And that's consistent with what I understood too. So, yeah.
The bill that was the fix for what came up in Helene, which was around not permitting downzonings of property. Do you know the status of that?
That's Senate Bill 587. That's Senator Lazzaro's bill, and we would much rather see repealed. But right now, again, that's still kind of, they're working on it. So I said that's another bill they're working on, because there's several counties as well as cities do not like that bill, and they're trying to work it out, and that's what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff's gonna come up in budget negotiations just because
Yeah.
we're so far apart, so they're gonna utilize a lot of this stuff to make the other side concede.
Okay.
Something they want.
And just so you're aware, that will really not permit us to move forward with our revising our Unified Development Ordinance and implementing our land use plan, because it will create nonconformities everywhere. And, when we're trying to do transit-oriented development and incentivize affordable housing and higher density and mixed use, things like that, we won't be able to do it.
What's the timeline on the county moving forward with that?
Well, we're working on it now. I mean, it won't be, we're developing it right now, so it we won't get adopted completely until about a year from now, but we're hoping to do it in pieces so that we don't have to wait for a whole year.
So, and I can just say, when you guys come up next week, if you can make a point to go by and see Representative Julia Howard or Representative Mitchell Sexler, because for 765, they're not champions for with the other guys. So if you guys, I know it's not Durham, but Representative Howard's pretty good person. Julia Howard, she's up near Winston-Salem area. Yeah, Forsyth County.
And what was the second representative you named?
Mitchell Sexler, Catawba. And they put a finance piece on there to try to keep that bill alive. I'm sorry, they put a finance piece, attached money to it, and that's how they can keep bills alive. So it didn't quite make crossover, but it really didn't have to once they put a dollar amount on it. And that was just to keep it alive. And that by doing that, they put it in their committee, which is Setzer and Howard Finance.
And Commissioners Burton and Valentine.
Yeah, I don't want to prolong this meeting. Thank you for coming again today. And as you already know, social services and the work we do with Durham Public Schools represents a large portion of our budget. The constraints that you're currently under as a delegation, anything that you do would be considered miraculous. But to the extent that you stay engaged with your partners and governors in governance across the aisle. I think that's important at this critical moment, particularly with so much at stake. And so, again, I want to just highlight the loss of Medicaid, which has already been talked about here today, and the impact that it will have on children's and families, and the ability for Durham County to provide service at the level that we historically have been able to do. And so to the extent that you can sound the bell and reiterate how damaging this could potentially be if we lose that funding from the federal government, and then the county becomes the safety net. And I think you've already heard that we're not in a position to be able to do that. And so whatever you're able to do. And I also wanted to highlight the efforts in regards to pre-K and how important that is as a county and the state to ensure that our children are in the very best position that they can be moving forward. They are our future. So thank you for being here today again, and I'll see you next week at the Capitol. Excuse me.
Yes, I just want to say, you guys, in my opinion, y'all are the best, because I know what you all do up in that legislature representing us. And that's why I want to support you all as much as I can. So thank you for fighting for us, advocating for us, and just fighting this fight to make sure that not only Durham County has what we need, but what the state needs. I'm not going to go through everything. I agree with my colleagues, but SNAP, I'm really concerned about that, as well as Medicaid. But I think about how many of the students that I taught that received, SNAP benefits. And, when I think about this work requirement, my own personal story, many of you all know I grew up in Illinois, grew up in Chicago, and my grandmother, I had an aunt who was special needs. And, she was intellectually and developmentally delayed. She could not work at all. And, my grandmother took care of her, and she got, back in the day, they called it food stamps, right? And she got food stamps to help, and Medicaid to help take care of my aunt. I just think it's cruel that we would do this to people, right? So I know we gotta push back on this. So thank you for all that you do fighting for public education. That's my heart. Fighting for kids, making sure our kids get a really good public school education. And now I'm getting more into this higher ed thing, thinking about HBCUs and what they mean for our state. So let us know who we need to talk to on the other side of the aisle when we come up there next week. And I will definitely come to see you all when we come to the legislature. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I also want to give Deborah Craig Gray a chance to share any comments or.
Well, again, I would just like to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Thank you for taking my calls and my emails when I've reached out on certain issues, certain emergency issues, as it was last week. But again, we appreciate the working relationship, and I hope that when you reach out to us, you get the response that you need to continue. We're your champions. We really appreciate what you do. I was telling Representative Moret, I was watching her on the floor the other day, just making her impassioned plea against the bill. And of course, we see how that goes, and we know you guys are really fighting some headwinds. But again, we're so grateful that you're standing in the gap for us all.
Well, thank you all so much. I just want to echo everyone's comments. We couldn't have more fierce advocates than all of you. So thank you. And County Manager.
Just one quick comment. In your packet, we gave examples from public health and the Department of Social Services of impacts to recent or proposed legislations. Send it as a soft copy as well. We know you work across the aisle, so you can use that, I'm sure, in those moments when trying to figure out ways to give examples that your colleagues can understand. And we also sent the press release to you as a reminder about the sanctuary city. So I sent that as well. So thank you again for all that you do. Always call us. We're available anytime. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. See you next week, and then we hopefully will be able to give you an update in the fall after the budget. If we get a budget, we will let you know either if we get a budget or if we don't.
Have we taken a picture? We need to take a photo. Are you coming? Before everyone leaves, let's get a quick photo. Randy, it looks like you're, wait, don't leave yet. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, right here? Okay. You want everyone on one side? Okay. So, how about this? This might look better for everyone standing here. Where do you think? Yes. Okay, so we'll come over there. Okay, we'll line up over here.